In this video, I'm going to show you how men over 40 can build muscle so fast it feels illegal. I'm Rio and I've helped dozens of men over 40 build muscle so quickly and so easily it almost feels illegal. And I've done the same over the last decade to take my body from this to this. So if you're tired of feeling soft, weak, and like your best days are behind you, I'm going to break down 11 simple steps anyone over 40 can follow to build muscle with ease. Step 1. Pick a handful of compound exercises. So everyone overcomplicates building muscle. All you really have to do to build muscle is to pick a handful of compound exercises that are well suited to your body and then strive to master them and get very strong at them over time. Like everybody nowadays obsesses over these tiny little intricate details like science this, science that, optimal this, optimal that. It's like, fuck me guys, it's so simple. Just pick a handful of compound exercises and get stronger at them over time. That's it. That's all you have to do. Like that's what I've learned in my 8 years now that I've been weight training and obsessing over this shit. It's like that's all you really have to do if you really boil it down to the core. Like the core first principles. Like that's what you have to do. That's it, right? And so there are two different types of exercises that you can do in the gym. You can do compound exercises or isolation exercises. And compound exercises are movements that work multiple joints and muscle groups at a time, whereas isolation exercises are movements that work a single joint and single muscle group at a time. And so the reality is that the compound exercises are the mass building exercises. These are your foundational exercises that will really account for like 80 to 90% of the muscle that you're capable of gaining. And isolation exercises act more as detail exercises. They're more just there to shore up weak links and to plug the gaps left by the big compound exercises, right? And that's for three different reasons. Like first of all, compound exercises, they just work so much muscle mass in your frame. They're very efficient, very bang for your buck movements that work so much muscle mass at a time. And through getting stronger at just a handful of them, you can literally cover your entire musculature. Second of all, you can load them very heavy. And that's really important because muscle growth is driven by tension. And to place tension on your muscles, you need to lift relatively heavy. And certain exercises make that more difficult. With compound exercises, you can lift quite heavy. With isolation exercises, pretty difficult to lift very heavy on them, right? And thirdly, you can progressively overload compound exercises very easily, meaning that you can get stronger at them over time. You can consistently add weight to them. Whereas with isolation exercises, there's a very strong cap to how strong you can get at them over time, and therefore there's a strong cap to how much muscle you'll be able to build through those exercises. And I'm not saying isolation exercises aren't important, but they're not your priority. They are more just there to sort of plug the gaps left by these big compound exercises, right? And so essentially, all you have to remember is that your muscle mass and how good you look, essentially, will always be in direct proportion to how strong you get at the handful of compound exercises that you choose to prioritize in your routine and that you choose to master and get as strong as possible at over time. And then beyond those foundational movements that you focus on mastering, you just want to add in a few isolation exercises for weak points and smaller muscle groups. Step 2. Work out 2 to 3 times per week. And so if you're a man over 40 and you're natural, you're not taking steroids, no PEDs, no enhancements, you want to have more rest days than training days every single week. And I know a lot of you guys are going to get your panties in a twist about this, but I don't care. The fact of the matter is that muscle is built outside of the gym during rest and recovery. It's not built inside of the gym when you are training. So many men over 40 stay stuck because they are caught up in the more is better mentality. And honestly, it's not your fault because that's been the marketing message of the fitness industry since the 60s. If you're not getting results, it's because you're not doing enough. That has been the marketing message of the fitness industry, and it's caused so many men to remain completely stagnant. You know, all you got to do is look at the results like of the training masses, of the amount, like look at the people who are in your gym. Most of them will not have good physiques. That is a fact. And that's because they're following mainstream fitness advice that advocates for being in the gym 5 to 6 days a week. And so most men over 40 are simply not allowing their bodies enough recovery time between sessions. And as a result, they are not gaining muscle because muscle is built during recovery. So if you're not recovering, you're not going to gain fucking muscle. That simple. And this is especially important after 40 because your recovery ability is not what it used to be. And I know a lot of people, you know, they almost get offended with this, but it's like, it's the truth. You're not going to recover like you did when you were 25. That's a fact. When you were 25 and you had nothing to do but eat, sleep, and lift, testosterone coming out of your ears. When you're over 40, you have excess demands upon your recovery because you have a more stressful lifestyle, right? You have more responsibilities that eats up your recovery, and your testosterone is slowly declining, and your recovery is just not what it used to be. And so you can't handle that much training if you are training properly. And that's important because you can only ever grow from what you can recover from. And so if most of your training, you cannot recover from it, it's a waste of time. You're better off reducing how often you train and how much you train and working within your recovery ability, because you'll actually be able to grow muscle from that. Typically, when you're training properly, which means actually training hard and striving to get stronger over time, training any more than 2 to 3 times per week will tend to lead to overtraining. And when you reach a state of overtraining, you will not only not make progress, you will actually lose muscle and strength. Because when you reach an overtrained state, you will stress your body the fuck out. Your cortisol levels will be incredibly spiked and you will lose muscle and strength. And so I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. You might be thinking like, oh, this sounds like complete and utter bullshit. This guy's a snake oil salesman. Look at how physiques were built before steroids came into play. Look at the 40s and 50s, the pre-steroid era of fitness, how men built impressive bodies before steroid use became the norm in the fitness industry. What did they do? They trained 2 to 3 times per week, typically on full body workout routines. They focused on compound exercises and they focused on getting very fucking strong. That's what they did. And then as soon as steroid use became very prominent in the fitness industry in the 60s, ever since then, what have people been doing? Training 5 to 6 days a week, doing endless exercises, endless sets, endless volume, because they have the recovery ability to be able to handle that because they're taking steroids, the people who promote these routines. So not only will it yield better results, but let's also talk about the sustainability aspect. So if you're over 40, chances are you're very unlikely to sustain 5 to 6 workouts a week. 90% of people quit the gym after just 3 months. That is a stat. That is a real stat. And I would bet you that that is because most people try and commit to routines that are just simply unsustainable. Everyone, New Year's comes and everyone's like, oh, I'm going to train 5 to 6 days a week. And after 3 months, they throw in the towel. And so if you work out 2 to 3 times per week, you will be able to sustain that. And before we talk about anything, any optimization, the most important thing to optimize for is consistency. Consistency is the key to succeeding in anything. If you can stay consistent with 2 to 3 workouts per week, that is what you should do. And most men are just not honest with themselves about this. It's like, if you can commit to 2 to 3 workouts per week and you can stay consistent with that, that's going to be way more productive than trying to commit to 5 to 6 workouts per week, but being inconsistent and then feeling guilty because you miss workouts, and it's a complete shit show. And this is something I see with my clients all the time. They come to me and they're like, Rio, my God, I've never been able to stay so consistent with weight training. Your minimalist training system is a game changer because I'm only in the gym like 2 days a week. And it's such a flexible system. I can always shift workouts around. I never miss my workouts. A lot of my clients, this is music to my ears. The number one thing I like to hear from my clients is that, Rio, I finally enjoy weight training. That to me is music to my ears. And the reason why they enjoy weight training is because they're not in the fucking gym every day. It's not a chore. When you're in the gym 5 to 6 days a week, it becomes a chore. You don't look forward to it. When you train 2 days a week or 3 days a week, you look forward to your workouts. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. You look forward to your workouts. You develop this enthusiasm for training. It becomes a highlight of your week because you're not in the gym every day. So this seems like common sense, but it's no one does it. No one fucking does it. So essentially, if we had to sum it up, what you'll notice from working out less is that you're going to gain muscle quicker because finally you're giving your body the rest time that it needs to actually grow from your sessions. Second, you're going to be able to train a lot harder and bring a lot more effort and intensity into your workouts because you're finally going into your workouts fresh and recovered. And this is important because training hard is what stimulates growth. So if you're going into your workouts tired and fatigued and it's preventing you from being able to train hard, you're not going to gain any muscle. Thirdly, you're going to see consistent strength gains. You're going to get stronger consistently because, again, you're not going into your workouts fatigued and exhausted. You're going into your workouts fresh, recovered, and able to push into new ground, get stronger, to add weight to the bar, which is really the name of the muscle building game. Fourthly, you're going to be consistent as fuck because finally you're following a system that you can actually sustain. And you're going to start to look forward to your workouts. By the way, guys, if this is resonating with you and you're over 40, you've tried to build muscle and nothing really seems to work and you want my help, there's a short video linked in my description below where I break down exactly how I help men over 40 build muscle and regain their confidence training just twice a week. So if you're serious about finally getting the body you've been chasing for years, click the link in my description, watch the video, and then book a free call with me. Now let's get back to the video. Step 3, keep your workouts brief but intense. And so when it comes to weight training, quality always beats quantity. Or in other words, intensity always beats volume. So more sets in the gym do not mean more gains. More sets typically just means a dilution of effort, because the more training you do, the more exercises, the more sets, the less hard you can train, because there is a trade-off between volume and intensity. If you're going to train a lot, you can't train as hard. If you train less, you can train much harder. And the most important thing to understand is that a few hard sets will always beat endless fluff. So many men over 40 spend hours in the gym doing a bunch of bullshit, just going through the motions. You'd always be better off doing less training, but putting more effort and more focus into that training. This way you'll stimulate more muscle growth and you'll avoid overtraining, because you're getting the job done with less. Because just doing endless exercises, endless sets become fatiguing and you're going to overtrain. But if you can reduce the amount of volume you're doing, but actually make it count, you'll stimulate a lot of muscle growth and you'll avoid overdoing it. And so the name of the muscle building game is stimulate, don't annihilate. That is really fucking important. So many men think that it's about annihilation, because bodybuilding culture has trained people to think like that. People are like, oh, if I don't finish my workout absolutely destroyed, then it wasn't a productive workout. And it's like, no, that's not what you want, because if you're destroyed, it's gonna be really hard for you to recover in time for your next workout. The goal is to stimulate muscle growth, not annihilate. Stimulate muscle growth with a small amount of training, get out of the gym, rest, recover, come back a little bit stronger. So many people are running on a hamster wheel and they're just endlessly stagnant because they annihilate themselves in their workouts, and therefore they cannot come back consistently fresh and recovered. This is why most people lift the same weights month after month and look the same month after month, because they do not allow their bodies, they overdo it in their workouts, they train beyond what they can recover from. And so they're basically just always stagnant. So it's always better to keep your workouts brief, but more intense. Step 4, train close to failure. And so to build muscle, you need to push your sets close to failure. And training close to failure just means pushing your sets to where you can no longer move the weight despite exerting maximal effort. It's on that final rep where you just can't move the weight no matter how hard you push. And the reality is that most men over 40 are not training anywhere near close to this point. They leave 3 to 5 reps plus in the tank on every single set that they do, and that's why they do not build muscle, because that is just not sufficient for stimulating muscle growth. It's only the last final difficult reps of any given set that actually count towards stimulating muscle growth. This is also known as effective rep theory. And effective rep theory says that it's only the last final 5 reps of any given set that actually count towards stimulating growth. And these are the final tough reps before you fail. And most men do not squeeze out those final tough reps. That is just a fact. I see this all the time. Most people just do not train hard enough to stimulate growth, because those final tough reps, those are the only reps that are difficult enough, that create enough tension, that create enough stress to actually stimulate adaptation and growth. Most of the reps leading up to those final 5 are really not that difficult. They're really not doing very much in the way of stimulating growth. And so you have to be able to push through those final tough reps. And by the way, guys, a massive key to being able to do this, the number 1 key to being able to do this, is to keep your workouts brief, like we talked about in the previous point. You have to keep the volume of your training sessions low in order for you to be able to push this hard. Because there's a massive trade-off between volume and intensity. Volume being the number of exercises and sets that you do, intensity being how hard you train and how close you push your sets to failure. If you do a lot of volume in your workouts, you're doing endless exercises, endless sets, it's really difficult to train hard enough, because your effort and your focus is diluted amongst so much shit. But if you reduce the number of exercises and sets that you do, you can put a lot more effort, a lot more intensity, a lot more focus into that reduced amount of volume. And that's always going to be better from a muscle growth standpoint, because that will allow you to train hard. Again, remember, training hard is much more important than training long and doing a lot of volume, right? It's always better to do fewer sets, but push those sets with more intensity, more effort, more focus, than to just do endless fluff and never really push your sets very hard, right? And so I just want to iterate this point. It's not necessary to actually fail your sets. You do not need to actually get to the point where you get stapled on a bench press. That's not necessary. But you need to squeeze out every single rep that you're capable of doing using good form on every single set that you do, which is basically 0 reps in reserve. You want to squeeze out every rep that you can do using good form, right? And a lot of people will sacrifice their exercise technique to get more reps. Do not do that. As soon as you've squeezed out every rep you can do using good form, that's when you rack the bar. Step 5, apply progressive overload. And so training hard and pushing your sets close to failure, like we just talked about, is what stimulates muscle growth. But that is not enough to keep muscle growth coming over the long term. To keep muscle growth coming over the long term, you need to apply progressive overload. And so the way I like to think about it, training hard stimulates growth, progressive overload keeps you growing. And so progressive overload just means increasing the resistance that you subject your muscles to over time. And this is the name of the muscle building game. This is the most important thing when it comes to building muscle. Like if there's one takeaway that you take away from this video, it would be this. It's the importance of progressive overload. It's the simplest thing in the muscle building game that everybody overlooks, but it's the most important thing. It's because all the rest of this shit would not matter without progressive overload. It is what drives muscle growth, right? It is what drives a good physique. And so the stronger you get, the more muscle you will build. If the weights that you lift stay the same, so will your body. And that's because without continuous new stress, you're not giving your body a reason to grow. And that is essentially what progressive overload is. It's just increasing stress over time, continuously subjecting your muscles to more and more stress, more and more resistance, because your muscles need a reason to grow. Your muscles don't just want to grow. Our bodies actually don't like gaining muscle because it's an extra expense. And so you have to force your muscles to grow. And the only way to force them to grow is to continue to increase the stress that you subject them to over time. That's why progressive overload is so important. And so you really want to make sure that you're tracking your lifts, you're tracking your strength. And every time you set foot into the gym, you are fighting to either add a rep to your sets or add a little bit of weight. That is the name of the game. It's about consistently increasing your exercise poundage over time. If you take nothing else away from this video, just focus on doing that and you will build muscle. Step 6, get enough calories and protein. And so to build muscle, you need fuel, right? And that fuel is essentially energy in the form of calories and protein. And so you want to eat in just a small calorie surplus. A small calorie surplus will give you the fuel that you need to build muscle, but without gaining excess body fat. And then beyond that, you just want to make sure that you're getting sufficient protein, which isn't very much, by the way. The fitness industry has massively exaggerated how much protein you need to build muscle. It is not very much at all. It's actually quite shocking how little it is if you actually measure it out. You really don't need that much protein in order to build muscle. And so you really want to focus on hitting the right calories and the right protein. These are the two biggest levers when it comes to changing your body composition and gaining muscle. Make sure you're hitting the right calorie intake, eating in a small surplus, and then getting enough protein. And then beyond that, just make sure that you're eating a balanced whole food diet. And make sure you're getting a balance of all the different macronutrients. Make sure you're getting your carbs, you're getting your fats, and you're getting your protein. Step 7, sleep 8 hours a night. And so it's during your sleep when your body actually grows muscle. That is something a lot of people fail to understand. And sleep is really the biggest lever on recovery, on hormones, and on energy. And so everybody loves to obsess over what's the perfect training plan, what's the perfect nutrition plan, what's the new diet, what's the optimal amount of training volume. But very few people pay attention to their sleep. And the reality is that perfect training and nutrition cannot fix poor sleep. The thing is that sleep is kind of the glue that holds your fitness regimen together. Because you could have the best training plan, best diet plan, it doesn't matter if you're not sleeping enough. It's not gonna matter whatsoever. And so you have to make sleeping a non-negotiable, not an afterthought. Most people treat it as an afterthought, but you have to prioritize getting 8 hours of sleep per night. I know some people can thrive on a little bit less, some people need a little bit more. You need to find that out for yourself, but ultimately I think 8 hours a night is a good benchmark. Step 8, track religiously. So there's a famous Peter Drucker quote where he says, "What gets measured gets managed." And tracking is one of those things that is just not sexy whatsoever, but is literally the most important thing when it comes to fitness. I am an absolute stickler when it comes to tracking, probably more than anyone you've ever met. Tracking is the most important thing. Knowing the key metrics relating to your body transformation process is absolutely critical. And this is the number one thing that I help my clients implement when they come on board into my coaching system. I get them on concrete data tracking systems. I literally have a custom app that I give them that literally has all of the key data that I need to know. I know where their weight is. I can see their the graph over time to see how their weight changes based upon what they're eating. I know how many calories they're eating. I see the numbers in the gym. I see their strength going up. A lot of times we have their body measurements as well. We track all of the key shit. And when you follow my coaching system, It's not a matter of like, oh, like I really hope this works. It's like, no, it fucking works because we track all of the shit that we need to track to make sure it works. Like we track the stuff that is just non-negotiable. And I know if we track this and it is in the right place, you will see results. There's no guesswork, there's no hope. And that is why you track. It's to take the fucking guesswork out of the equation. Because there are a few key things that if you track and you know that your numbers are where they need to be by the end of the day, you will transform your body. It's that simple. So much of fitness is knowing where your numbers need to be and then just making sure that when you go to bed each night, your numbers are aligned with where they need to be. It's so fucking simple. Like, pardon my French, but like this shit is so simple, man. It's so simple. You just need to track the key shit. Track your workouts, track your calories, track your protein, track your body weight. Like, it's so simple, man. Most men, you know, they think it all comes down to guesswork. It's like, no, dude, it's all a numbers game. You track the key shit, you know where it needs to be, you're gonna transform. There's no question about it, you know? And so if you're in a position right now where you don't really know, like, oh, like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this? Like, I'm not seeing progress. It's like, you're not tracking, man. If you're not seeing progress right now the way you want to, and you are wondering why, it's because you're not tracking. The truth is always in the numbers. Step 9, walk. And so you might be thinking, like, what does walking have to do with building muscle? Well, it really doesn't have anything to do with building muscle. In all honesty, it's not gonna directly help you stimulate muscle growth. But a lot of you guys at this point are probably thinking like, wait, what, 2 to 3 workouts a week? What the fuck am I gonna do my rest days? The answer is walk. That's what you wanna do on your rest days. In fact, I do this every single day. I make getting 10,000 steps per day a non-negotiable, unless it's like, there's like 5 feet of snow because it's winter time because I live in Canada. In that case, you know, I'll slack on the steps a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. This past winter was absolutely insane in Canada. Holy fuck. But when the weather allows for it, I will absolutely go for walks. In fact, I had like this past winter when it was like, it was snowing all the time. I had this like, this anxiety because I wasn't able to go for my walks because it's become such a part of my daily routine. And I'd recommend you do the same. Make walking a part of your daily routine. It will completely change your life. So what walking will do is it will keep you healthy, obviously. It will prevent excess fat gain on your bulk, on your muscle building phase, and it will help you with recovery. Because if you just sit on your ass all the time, it's not necessarily great, but like getting some movement in on your rest days will help you get the blood flowing, and it will help with that circulation. It will help with the muscle recovery, right? So it will actually help you with your weight training indirectly. The reason why I don't advocate for intensive cardio is because intensive cardio does 2 things. It increases your appetite, causing you to overdo your calories and thus gain too much body fat, especially important when you're trying to lose fat, but even important when you're trying to gain muscle, if you're trying to stay lean on your muscle building phase. And it impedes your recovery. And so you have a limited recovery ability, like we talked about earlier. And so you do not want all of these different activities and this intense exercise digging into your recovery ability and taking away from your weight training process. Because when your goal is to build muscle and strength, your priority needs to be in your weight training. And so you do not want other activities that are very intensive that are sapping your recovery, taking away your resources that you could be putting towards building muscle. Right? And obviously, if your goal is not primarily to build muscle, which I don't know why you're watching this fucking video at this point, then yeah, you can include some intensive cardio. If it's something that you really value and that you think helps you a lot with your health, that's fine. Just know that if you're coming at it from a health standpoint, walking will give you all of those benefits, but without the downsides. Step 10, stick to the same program. And so results demand consistency, not novelty. Program hopping kills so many people's progress, man. Everybody has shiny object syndrome nowadays. And the reality is that most of you guys just need to stop watching so much fitness content. Like, that's really the root cause of this shit nowadays. Everybody is like so confused, man. Like, I see this so much as a fitness coach. Everybody's so confused. Everybody's like, oh, like this, was it this or that? It's like, everybody is completely confused up the arsehole. And it's because they're listening to way too much different fitness content. They have too many different conflicting messages coming into their brain, and they're just completely confused as a result. So the best thing you can do is to just pick one method, one program, one philosophy, and just apply tunnel vision to it. Just stick to it. Only do that. Because the reality is the best program is the one that you're actually going to stick to. There's no such thing as a perfect program. The perfect program is the one that you commit to and that you actually see through. And so a bad program done with consistency will always outperform perfect programs that you just are constantly switching between and jumping through. Step 11, avoid injuries. So this obviously goes without say, but it's so important because really the key to muscle growth at the end of the day is to consistently train. If we just forget about kind of everything we've talked about so far and we just kind of focus on like what is really the most important thing, it's consistency. It's staying in the game. And one of the main causes of inconsistency beyond just pure laziness is injuries, right? And so if you actually think about it, avoiding injuries is the quickest way to speed up your muscle building process because it will allow for more consistent workouts. It will allow you to string together more consistent progressive workouts over time. And so I can tell you this from firsthand experience, like the number one thing that will set you back is injuries. And this is especially true when you're over 40 because a bad injury when you're over 40 can set you back a lot further than a bad injury when you're 18. Getting hurt over 40 is a completely different game. And so you must avoid injuries like the plague. It's so important. It is literally the number one way to guarantee that you build muscle and you build a great physique and you stay healthy, just to avoid injuries. Because if you just stay injury free, you'll be able to consistently train and therefore you'll see great results. Really that simple. So there are a few different keys to avoiding injury. Obviously, the first thing you need to do is learn proper form, right? And this is actually one of the main things that I dial in on with my clients. Like one of the first things we do when my clients come on board is that we review their exercise technique, right? They'll start the program, which I customize for them, and then they'll basically take a few clips, they'll film themselves in the gym, and then they'll get on a call with me and we'll review their exercise technique. I'll make sure that they're using the right weight. I'll make sure that their form is good, that they're doing a full range of motion, that they're focusing, that they're breathing properly, and that they know all the different cues for how to perform the exercises. And not even just that, I also have an entire exercise tutorial library where I show them all the videos of how to perform the exercises that we do in the program. And they find that extremely, extremely valuable. And it helps them to stay injury free, right? It helps them get the lessons without the scars, So that's really important. Next thing's warming up properly. Warming up properly is really important. Avoiding ego lifting, like not lifting more than you're actually capable of, not lifting more than what you're capable of controlling. And then the third and actually most important thing, believe it or not, is to avoid doing too much volume. Because the number one cause of injuries in the weight room is actually overuse, which basically just means like micro traumas to your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments from repetitive stress. And so actually, like most injuries in the weight room are not, like people think like people drop the bar on their neck on the bench press or get like folded from the squat, like these intense, crazy injuries, but that honestly rarely happens. It's mostly overuse injuries that slowly build up over time that like slowly kind of create these niggles and these pains, So it's really important to avoid doing too much volume. If you apply what I've told you throughout this video in terms of prioritizing intensity over volume, you will actually you'd be more likely to stay injury free. And a lot of people, like when I say you need to train close to failure, a lot of men over 40 think that's dangerous, but no, that's actually a lot safer than doing a bunch of volume. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna love this video right here where I talk about how men over 40 can lose fat so fast it feels illegal.